Alright folks, it is officially the second half of the year, and you know what that means. It's time for July TBR. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer for film, television, and gaming, specializing in book adaptations. Most recently, my music would be found on The Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Materials Season 3, and the official Brent Week's companion album for his series Lightbringer. So today is the day where I'm putting out a July TBR video. And, any of these books that I'm going to be listing here, feel free to let me know in the comments if you like to read along, alongside us, and maybe I could kind of start doing little breakout discussions based on these books. So very excited to get into them. So without further ado, we're going to start with book 1. And the first book I'm going to start with is actually with a fellow composer friend of mine who also specializes in book adaptations, Lindsay Dales. I'm going to link her channel down here in her socials in case you want to check her out. And that book is none other than The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. So I've heard so much about this book, and I've always been a little bit trepidatious about starting it because it's one of those series which we're not sure if it'll ever be finished or what's going to happen with the final book, Doors of Stone, which had been, delayed, and then there was rumors that it's not even been written yet. So don't really know where that stands, but if I have a friend who wants to buddy read it with me, that changes the whole game. I think creating a community where people want to read together is always the most fun part of this whole channel and this whole process of discovering new books. So since my friend Lindsay proposed this, I figured what a better place to start than with Name of the Wind in July. So that's going to be the first book I'm going to start with. The second book I want to start with, please excuse the plane noise, by the way. I always have to wait, and then every time I try to speak, then the plane, flies overhead because I live not too far from Burbank Airport. But anyways, you didn't come here for that. You came here for the book. So number 2 is none other than another buddy read I'm going to be doing with Disquiet and Dragons. And we are going to continue on our Realm of the Elderlings journey with Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. So this book is going to continue the story of Fitz. It is book 2 in the Farseer trilogy, and it is book 2 of the 16 books of Realm of the Elderlings. So we got quite a ways to go. John from Disquiet and Dragons and I will be reading that one in July as well. So super excited to continue Fitz's story. I'm linking his channel as well below, and I'm linking the book links as well if you want to check those out. That is the second book I'm going to be checking out. For those of you who are new to the Realm of the Elderlings, it's a lot more of a slow burn fantasy. It's a very character-focused fantasy, and it was written, starting in the mid-90s, and then it ended in 2013, I believe, with the final book, Assassin's Fate, I want to say. Don't want to say too much more than that, other than that, we're excited to continue Fitz's story in this Farseer trilogy and see how it matches up to that fantastic start of the first book, Assassin's Apprentice. So number 3 is going to be continuing on the Brandon Sanderson train, because I'd mentioned in a previous video that I really want to read more Brandon Sanderson and Cosmere so I can be ready for Wind and Truth, book 5 of the Stormlight Archive when it comes out in December 6th. So in order to do that, I've been reading kind of slowly the Cosmere. I last month did a buddy read with Bookish Chaz and Carl from Geek on My Sleeve. We did The Lost Metal, which was book 4 of the Wax and Wayne quadrilogy, Mistborn Era 2. And so now I'm going to continue and read Warbreaker. Some of these I've been reading a little bit out of order. There's not necessarily a definitive reading order, but some of the character crossovers you start to experience. So I want to make sure that I'm at least caught up to the Cosmere before that 5th and probably very epic Stormlight book comes. So Warbreaker is going to be the 3rd read. To tell you a little bit about this book, I'm going to read the description I found on Barnes & Noble's website. It says, Warbreaker is the story of 2 sisters who happen to be princesses. The God King, one of them has to marry. The lesser god who doesn't like his job, and the immortal who is still trying to undo the mistakes he made hundreds of years ago. The world is one in which those who die in glory return as gods, to live confined to a pantheon in Hallandrin's capital city, and where a power known as biochromatic magic is based on an essence known as breath that can only be collected 1 unit at a time from individual people. By using breath and drawing upon the color in everyday objects, all manner of miracles and mischief can be accomplished. It will take considerable quantities of each to resolve all the challenges facing Vivenna and Ciri, princesses of Idris, Susabran, the God King, Light Song, reluctant god of bravery, and mysterious Vasher, the Warbreaker. So what an intriguing premise. I always love Brandon Sanderson's magic systems and, kind of the greater Cosmere universe at large. And I love his exploration of very, kind of imperfect characters and the situations they go through, both externally and actually internally, is what makes his brand of fantasy so compelling. So really excited to read this one. And this is one of those rare fantasy standalones. So anytime you get a chance to read fantasy standalones that are so highly praised, always a good day. So that is the third book I'm going to read. Now, the fourth book I want to read, let's see if I can get to this, and I'm kind of waiting on my friend Robert Mai, another composer, who wanted to read the Expanse series alongside me. So I think he's on book 3 right now, so hopefully he'll be caught up by mid-July, and I can kind of start this one, which is Expanse 4, Cibola Burn. I think Cibola or Chibola Burn? I think it's Cibola Burn. I don't want to tell you too much about this, except for the fact that the first 3 books seem to be a little bit more insular, in the sense that the Expanse series is like a 9-book series, and the first 3 books are more focused on kind of a more contained story, a more contained crew. And I've heard that as the series progresses, it kind of expands, for lack of a better word, into a grander sci-fi epic space opera type of a thing. So I think 4 is probably going to be a transitional book where that expanse begins. And I'm excited to read it. And I'm excited to read it alongside my friend as well. So another chonker of a book, but that seems to be no surprise in the list of chonkers I've been reading the last few months. So I'm excited to dive into that again after a few months break. It's been a few months since I read the third book, so I'm always looking forward to not taking too long between books so I don't forget what's happened and I can really get back into the immersiveness of the story and the depths of the characters and things like that. So the fourth book of The Expanse, Cibola Burn, is going to be my fourth choice for July. The fifth choice is a shorter book, and the reason being I kind of want to have a shorter book peppered in throughout this massive kind of scope of these different books I'm trying to read. So this fourth book is a Stephen King read, and I have a whole shelf dedicated to the man back here, so I'm definitely a fan of the man. He's my all-time favorite author, and I've been making it a quest to go through every single book that he's ever written. And so as I'm doing that, I wanted to pick up one of his shorter works, and I have it on my shelf already on hardcover, so I wanted to read Elevation. So what is this book about? I'm just pulled up an Amazon description here, so I'm going to read it to you. And, I'm kind of looking at this description, and it kind of feels almost like Thinner, the book Thinner, the Richard Bachman book that he wrote. So let's see what it's all about. Although Scott Carey doesn't look any different, he's steadily been losing weight. There are a couple of other odd things, too. He weighs the same in his clothes and out of them, no matter how heavy they are. Scott doesn't want to be poked and prodded. He mostly just wants someone else to know, and he trusts Dr. Bob Ellis. In the small town of Castle Rock, the setting of many King's most iconic stories, Scott is engaged in a low-grade but escalating battle with lesbians next door whose dog regularly drops his business on Scott's lawn. One of the women is friendly, the other cold as ice. Both are trying to launch a new restaurant, but the people of Castle Rock want no part of a gay married couple, and the place is in trouble. When Scott finally understands the prejudices they face, including his own, he tries to help. Unlikely alliances, the annual foot race, and the mystery of Scott's affliction brings out the best in people who have indulged the worst in themselves and others. I mean, it started off almost feeling like a Thinner knockoff, but it's kind of veered off into a very different direction. So Castle Rock story I definitely want to check out. And the uniqueness of the premise, the shortness of the book is probably going to make it a really fun read, kind of peppering it in amongst all these chonkers. So that was number 5. Now, speaking of chonkers, I wanted to finish off, and I'm kind of racing to the finish line to finish off Winter of the World right now, which is book 2 of Ken Follett's Century Trilogy, which follows these 5 families across multiple generations as they experience and are swept up in world events. So for this Winter of the World book that I've been reading in June and should be on track to finish before July 1st, because I'm recording this video a couple days early, takes place in World War II. So Edge of Eternity, the 3rd book in the Century Trilogy, is the 6th book I want to read in July. Try to say that 5 times fast. And that one plots, I believe, the Cold War to the year 2000. So that's going to be interesting because, when you read about history and you kind of try to see the POVs of these people who lived almost 100 years ago, it's a different kind of vantage point of history. But when you start to kind of see this history catch up to the present day, that's going to be an interesting thing to read. I'm not sure when he released that particular book. I think it was in in the last 10 years or so. So I'm kind of interested to see, the more modern perspective of these families and the generations that kind of came from the first couple of books. So that's going to be the sixth book I'm going to read, Edge of Eternity, and that will round out the Century trilogy, and I'll have read like 3 Ken Follett books back to back. So always fun when you can do a deep dive of an author, and so I'm really looking forward to checking that out. So those are my 6 books that I want to read in the month of July 2024. Let me know in the comments what you're planning on reading and what your TBR list is, because I'm always down to, I'm a mood reader as much as I'm, a fastidious planner, and I'm always down to go, oh, you know what? I was going to read the other books in August, but I'm just going to blow my TBR out of the water and just kind of take some of the recommendations you provide down here. So let me know what you're going to be reading, and that's it from me. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe if you like this kind of content and you're enjoying kind of watching me blather on about books for a little while each week. And I'm excited to have more videos coming soon. So I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Please be good to yourselves. Please be good to each other. And I'll see you on the next one. All right? Take care.